Hi, guys. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm so pleased to be joined by my friend Maria Gonzales. Today, Maria is the spouse of an Air Force veteran, and we met when you were working at a large corporation, but now you have gone off on your own and started your own business. So you are now a consultant.
Yeah.
Welcome, Maria.
Yeah. Thanks, Sue. Thank you so much for having me.
So I just kind of alluded to the fact that when we met, you were working for a big corporation, but maybe you can tell people a little bit more about your professional journey.
Sure. I am a public health professional and I have at least 15 years or so working in public health. And this company that where we met each other is a healthcare organization. And I felt very fortunate that my role there at that company was to support the military, active duty military and their families. That's how you and I connected. And then, of course, there were some changes in the contract this year, which required that my position be dissolved, and I found myself looking for something else to do. My next opportunity, my next journey, and here we are.
Yeah, and so Maria recently went into a business for herself, and I know that you tapped right into those resources that are available to us because I think you did the IVMF.
Yeah.
You know, what was that? You did
The VWise.
the VWise conference, and I know that was really helpful to you. And I know you used a lot of other resources, but I mean, other than that, what was the transition like going from working for a large corporation to going into business for yourself?
Yeah, it was definitely as hard and as intimidating as I always thought it would be. I'm really not a risk taker myself, and so the idea of doing something on my own and going out on my own was really, really frightening. I always wanted to know where my paycheck was coming from and what work I was going to be doing and who I was going to be working with, and being a solopreneur, you don't have any of that. It's completely unpredictable. So it was really scary. I would say that the learning curve was very, very steep.
But because I was with you on the journey because we stay in touch and we're colleagues now. But we were colleagues then, we're still colleagues. And one of the things that I noticed about you was that you were very open to advice, right? And you would
Yes.
take the advice because, I felt the same way as you. I didn't come from a large corporation. I came from a nonprofit into soloprenneurship. But I'm like, oh my God, Maria, outsource whatever you can, do this, do that.
Yeah.
I mean, for people who are just getting started, what would you tell them about you know, I think a lot of people, when they go into business for themselves, they try to do it all themselves. But I really appreciate that you're someone who's very self-aware.
Mhm.
And so you fully understood what you wanted to do, what you could do, and what you're willing to outsource. Like, tell us a little bit about that. Like, how did you get comfortable with that? And what did you outsource as a new
Yes.
solopreneur?
Yeah, no, thanks for asking. So, Sue, you know that I have my hands full. I have my hands in a lot of things. I
Yeah.
have a huge family, getting my doctorate, and this was just another something that I had to add to the mix. And initially, I did want to have my hands in everything because I'm kind of a control freak like that. So I thought I wanted just to make sure that everything went off exactly as I would want it to be. But it came to the realization that I just couldn't. Not only did I not have the time, I didn't have the capacity. I didn't have the knowledge. And so, immediately getting with a coach who could help guide me to prioritize what was most important was very, very helpful because it's kind of like, not kind of, it's like drinking from a water hose. You get so
Yeah.
much guidance and counseling from people who you trust, and you don't know necessarily where to start. So, for me personally, I did outsource my brand. I started with my branding to create my personal brand, and I got with the local photographer out of Austin, Texas. She directed me to her web designer, and I used a web designer. I mean, those are just not skills that I ever have possessed, and I couldn't have done it any other way. So, really, really leaning into those advisors, those mentors, and those coaches who have your best interest in mind. I think that was like the best investment I could have made in myself at the beginning.
No, that's awesome. And then I know that you're someone who is very self-aware and, I think that's important for everybody. When I mentor someone, I'm always like get to know yourself better. Like understand what your priorities are so that you can understand what to say yes to and what to say no to. I mean, but that can't be easy for someone who's starting a business, right? Like, because I have to think that those gremlins that sow self-doubt are very loud. They're like, who are you? Maybe what do you think you know? Why would you be the one to start a business? Why are you going to be any better than anybody else? Like, how do you stay true to your priorities and just break through all that noise and still pursue what it is you want to do?
And for this one, I have to give a ton of credit to my husband. He is my greatest champion and my biggest cheerleader. He actually was the one who, counseled me and helped me through those hard parts at the beginning. Because to your point, self-doubt is real.
Yeah.
You definitely have that imposter syndrome that tells you that you cannot be doing this on your own. And what kind of what kind of credentials do you have that make you think that you'll be successful? And they are loud. They are real loud and they're unforgiving. And so just having that grace with yourself, having those very strong belief systems, if you're a spiritual or religious person, like take some time to reflect, like you said, on what's important to you. Really lean into, dig deep into yourself, and just know that you do have the capacity to do it. And that's what my coach told me. Maria, you're more than qualified. You were already doing this work and now you're just doing it on your own and for yourself. So
Yeah.
learn to quiet those voices. I know, you've said it to me, and I'm sure people have said it to each other a lot, but you would never talk to a friend the way you talk to yourself. So,
Right.
quiet those voices, like be your own cheerleader, that's what it is.
Yeah, and my coach had always said, like, compartmentalize things correctly. So,
Mm,
like, instead of that gremlin being the one that's limiting you, maybe that gremlin is playing the devil's advocate and having you look on the other side of things. Like, have you considered this? And once they said that, I'm like, no, that's right. So it's not like you're saying, I don't want to hear you, just be quiet.
yeah.
It's you're saying, let me put you in the correct size box.
Mm.
You're not the biggest voice in the room. You're one of my little advisors. Like, this is what
Yeah.
you should consider.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, just off of that note, mindset is really everything. If you just shift your perspective a little bit, a challenge can be an opportunity. And so it really just keeping those little nuggets of information handy. So when you're having a hard day, you can lean on that guidance.
100%. So,
Mhm.
because it's so relatively new to you, you've been at this for a while, but it wasn't like 16 years ago. Like I
Yeah.
started I think 16 years ago. So it's a little bit, further off in the distance. What would you tell other people thinking about making the leap into solopreneurship? Like any pitfalls, things you wish you had known at the start of your journey?
Yeah, I would say do it. Again, just do it. If you're already thinking about it, then, take that leap of faith and invest in yourself. There is nothing more liberating or more freeing than working hard for yourself. You are the boss. So the hustle and the time and the investment that you give, it comes back to you. You're rewarding yourself now. And also it allows you to truly define what brings you purpose and joy. You are no longer filling a job description. You can design this as you go. And I hate to say this, but there are no rules. You don't have to keep the scope of your work very, very narrow. You can do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And again, that's very, very freeing. It's very empowering. So take that leap of faith. I don't think I would have been saying that a year ago now, but here I am on the other side of it saying, be patient with yourself and give yourself some grace. But it's absolutely and 100% doable.
And the crazy thing about entrepreneurship, and I think like this, but other people may not who haven't started their own business yet, you're gonna make so many mistakes, and like everybody makes different mistakes and
Mhm.
everybody's journey is different. So
Yeah.
it's so like humbling, right? Because it's like you might have all the best advice in the world, but you're like, okay, nobody prepared me for this. Like
Yeah.
nobody prepared me for this exact thing. And so I think that's kind of funny. Uh,
Exactly. Yeah, and just, be intentional about whose guidance you follow, because there are entrepreneurs from all different industries and their journey is not going to be your journey. So,
right.
be mindful of whose guidance you're following, because you certainly don't want to take it to take you down the wrong path and then you've wasted time. So, yeah, just keep
No,
that.
that's really smart. So what you're saying is like trust but verify. Like, yes, everybody has an opinion. They will give you their opinion, but it's up to you
Mhm.
to kind of put it through the filter of your own experiences.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's get a little bit personal.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you, our community is not that great about being accepting at times, where it's like active duty spouses don't want veteran spouses to call themselves spouses, and it's just insane sometimes. And I know for someone who might have married their service member later, whether they were getting ready to transition or after the transition, it can be different, right? Because a lot of the spouses will look at it and go, you weren't even in the trenches with us. How dare you call yourself a spouse? Or, I mean, for you, it was kind of unique because in your day job, you were serving military spouses and active duty families.
Mhm.
So it's almost like you're a spouse, but how did you break through and just develop street cred? Because it's
Mhm.
almost like our community loves being served by people who understand our community.
For sure.
How did you, as someone who married your spouse after he, transitioned from the Air Force, how did you establish your street cred with our community?
Yeah, talk about imposter syndrome, right? I'm going into a room trying to give advice or make connections or build relationships with people who are military affiliated, all the while I didn't have that lived experience. So yeah, it was really, really tough. There were a lot of titles that I didn't assume until many years after I was married to my husband, just because I didn't feel like they applied to me necessarily.
Right.
So how did I establish street credibility? One at a time, one relationship at a time. I surrounded myself with people like you, great champions and mentors in this space, and over time, building out those trusting relationships, it really helped me. But to get my foot in the door, I had to lean on his title and his service for anybody to even, give me any kind of credibility, that I even knew what I was talking about and I deserved to be there. So, at the beginning, it was hard because that was his identity, not mine. But mine didn't carry so much weight, even though I had the experience and the credentials. It
Yeah.
didn't matter at all with this community. So it was difficult at first, especially talking directly to service members and leaders in the military community. Yeah, it was hard at first, but then you establish yourself and you get a little bit of that thick skin, and now you can talk the talk and you can walk the walk. And so I've been doing this work now for long enough that I think I've established my place in this space, and I no longer worry about that. But it took
Yeah,
time.
and I mean, that's always been really interesting to me, especially, the way you articulate it is so true because you have all the credentials, you have all the education, you have the resume that speaks to why you belong in the room. But for some people, all they care about is, do you get me?
Yeah.
Do you get the life? Do you get the lifestyle? And so it's almost like, okay, so you have to borrow your husband's, service and just say, yes, my husband's, Air Force veteran and all this other stuff. But then the more they get to know you, the less that matters.
The less that matters, right? I think at the beginning there's that cultural competency that I understand and I appreciate and I know, not firsthand, but even secondhand, what you're experiencing and what you're going through. And actually, I would argue that marrying my spouse after his service is, being that person, the veteran spouse, is equally, difficult. I wasn't in the trenches, but I had to learn real fast what it was all about.
Yeah, because nobody leaves the service unscathed, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
We all learn too well. Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much, Maria, for your words of wisdom, and thank you guys for joining us today. And especially, thanks to our friends at USAA for making these conversations possible. We hope to see you guys here next week. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Sue. Bye.